Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the ProNexus Lease Accounting Software demo. We're going to allow for another minute or so here to let a few more people enter. So please bear with us. And for sound check purposes, while I have some of you on the call already, can you please just click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen if you can hear me okay? Excellent, thank you. It looks like audio is working just fine. Okay, great. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. By way of introduction, my name is Rafael Vidal. I'm one of the founding partners here at ProNexus, and with me I have Dan Hawthorne, who's part of our lease advisory and implementation team. We do have our email addresses on this slide, so feel free to jot those down now in the event you'd like to reach out to us individually after the presentation. Before we begin, we do have a few housekeeping items to address. You will be muted during the duration of this presentation, so if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. We'll answer those questions at the end of the session, and we also will have a recorded version of the webinar that will be sent to all the participants as well. And lastly, we will have a few polling questions throughout the presentation, and we ask that you just take a few seconds to answer those questions as they come through. All right, if we take a look at the agenda for this morning, we're going to give you a quick overview of ProNexus. We're going to talk about the ProNexus Lease software features, the ProNexus Lease software demo, and then we're going to address some of your questions that you might have regarding the software demo. Before we begin, we're going to give you 15 seconds now to answer our first polling question. Okay, excellent. Thank you. This next slide here provides you a high-level overview of our firm if you're not familiar with us. And just to give you a little bit of background, ProNexus was founded by two Big Four CPAs from PwC and Deloitte & Touche. The entire leadership team are either CPAs and or former controllers and CFOs. We operate the firm very much like a CPA firm. However, we only perform non-attest services. We have 5 core services, which includes consulting, project work, outsourced accounting services, interim, and loan staff services. Additional services do include retained search and NetSuite ERP services. And if you'd like to learn more, please feel free to visit our website. On the home page on the upper right-hand corner, there's a link to our case studies, which really gives you a good idea of how we help clients. In terms of our experience for the last 2 years, ProNexus has been helping companies implement the new lease accounting standard. We started with the publicly traded companies and then moved on to the privately held non-for-profits and governmental entities as well. We've developed a significant number of IP and tools during that period of time to help streamline the process for clients. In addition, we invested early on into lease accounting software to help clients accelerate the implementation. And in terms of volume of leases, we've worked with clients with as little as 10 to thousands of leases in their portfolio. And before we continue, we're going to give you another 15 seconds here to answer our second polling question. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. All right. So before we talk about the software features, as many of you may know by now, the FASB has delayed compliance. They did so last year because of the pandemic. So for non-public organizations, this moves the requirement to the fiscal year starting after December 15, 2021. And for public non-profit entities, this moves the requirement to fiscal year starting after December 15, 2020. And we've been cautioning our clients that more time won't necessarily lessen the workload that the rules required. And if you are a non-public calendar year company, day one compliance begins on 1/1/22, which is less than 10 months away. Now, having said that, many of our privately held and nonprofit clients have already started their implementation projects. They started as early as last year, and we have several scheduled to start over the next 2 quarters already. And for those of you that have not adopted, at a minimum, we would recommend to get started now with one of two options or a combination thereof. Option one would be completing the planning, scoping, and assessment phases of the implementation. There's not a lot of work involved there, and it really will provide you and your company visibility to what's ahead, while identifying some of the high-risk areas and planning accordingly to meet the compliance deadlines. Option two would be to purchase some lease accounting software, start abstracting the data elements from the existing leases and uploading that data into the software. That'll allow you and your company to maintain the lease data in a central repository, estimate what your day one right-of-use asset calculations may look like, and allow for a quick and seamless implementation when the time comes. This would be no different than having fixed asset software for your fixed assets, for example. Now, if you participate in some of our previous webinars, our firm highly recommends considering lease software solutions. Using Excel to manage the ongoing compliance will be difficult and will increase your risk. For example, with Excel, there's no segregation of duties, there's limited access controls, no adequate audit trails, the change reporting and version control can become difficult. Tedious, there's some tedious and manual contract remeasurements that would take place within Excel, as well as modification and adjustments that would have to be made during the life cycle of the lease. In addition, your auditors may have to spend more time on the audit, and you could experience some scope creep, which may potentially increase your audit fees as well. Our software that Dan's going to show us here shortly is the only lease accounting software, by the way, made by former CPA firm auditors. And this software was named recently the best lease accounting software by digital.com and was rated #1 easiest and most accurate lease accounting software on the market out of 80 software solutions. So we're pleased to be using the software and partnering with the software company. The software is cost effective and can be purchased through our firm. The software provides you an unlimited number of users, which is great. And it only charges you based on the number of leases you actually have. So for example, if you only have 10 leases, it would cost you no more than $1,500 a year for the subscription license. And for that price, this solution is highly recommended over the alternative of using cumbersome Excel spreadsheets. Now, with this software, it's easy for clients and auditors to track, monitor, and modify leases. The software is cloud-based. It's a centralized repository for all your leases and supporting documentation. If you look at the left-hand column of this slide, you'll see the essential features. This software does comply with both IFRS, FASB, and GASB for governmental agencies. It's cloud-based, access anywhere, anytime, and it does provide you error-free amortization schedules and journal entries. If you look at the right-hand column, some of the innovative features include an automated quantitative footnote disclosure, and also lease classification and lease term wizards that would guide your staff with the proper accounting of leases. The software is designed to comply with the new standard by providing you all the reporting required, including amortization schedules, journal entries, and the automated footnote disclosures that we just mentioned. And with this software, our clients are realizing much faster audits, and the audit firms are actually realizing better, I guess, realization for their audit firms as well. The software does come with SOC 2, Type 1 and Type 2 reports and agreed upon procedures, which are available for the auditors as well. There's some recent innovative feature upgrades to the software, which includes a bulk lease import template, which comes in handy. There's audit trail features in the software. There's a workflow edit, review, and approval process that was added. And one of the most recently added features is access to the embedded lease identifier wizard as well, which is a nice feature within the software. Okay, so before we start the demo here, we're going to give you another 15 seconds to answer our third and final polling question. Okay, great. With that, I am going to turn it over to Dan actually to start the demo. So Dan, do you want me to stop share my screen?
Yep. Thank you, Raphael.
No problem.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. So as Raphael said, this is a cloud-based software solution, and you would just set up your users and you would come to this screen once you sign in. And right now we're going to use for this demo, we got our company name is ProNexus. And we're going to go through client. We're going to go here to the ProNexus. We're going to go into the company. And as you can see, there's My Leases, Add Lease, and Administration. So we'll start with the Administration tab. And here's the users that we have set up in here. And it's just as easy to, you hit the invite, you put the email of the person you want, that becomes their username, first name, last name, and you select the role. It has 3 roles that you can use, and it's a read only, which is obvious. You can just read and run reports in there and read what's in there. The user can actually set up leases and enter that information, and the administrator, of course, can add leases and also can do background work in the Administration tab. And then if you want to delete people, you can also do that. So we're going to go to the Policies tab here. So the Policy tab gives you the option to enable firm access to my account, which kind of allows you to give the auditors access, and that can be for a certain amount of time. So if it's during the audit and you want to give them access to kind of search through the leases for their testing, you can do that. It also has where we can select by checking the box. When you enter lease data, you're going to be required to run through the lease term guidance wizard for every lease. It also has a classification wizard for every lease to determine whether it is a financing lease or the old capital leases or an operating lease. And you also, as Raphael also said, that it has a workflow. If you want to turn on the workflow, you can do that as well. So once somebody completes entering the lease data, we'll show you that. You have an option of several emails, and you can send it to that person to review and to activate the lease. It also comes with the accounting policy template. So for those of you that don't know, you have policy elections as part of the standard. So this kind of puts it all in a nice little package so that the auditors can have access to it. And this is already kind of written up for you, and all it is check the boxes. So as you can see here, here's the table of contents. So we'll go through a couple of those, but this is the short-term leases, kind of gives you a description of what it is. As you can see here, it gives you some advantages or disadvantages, and then you can select what you want to do. And here we have selected that you elect not to apply the lease standard to short-term for all classes of underlying assets, right? So you wouldn't have to record any assets less than 12 months, which is kind of the standard. That's why that box is checked. And you can go through, it talks about non-lease components as well, discount rates, and the other policy elections that you have to do by each class. Okay, and then once you finish that template, you can upload it. And of course, the upload's just your standard, choose the file and upload. Okay, we're going to go to reporting entity. As you can see here, we have 6 reporting entities under our company ProNexus. And it's, again, just as easy to add. It's so easy to add a company that you got the company name, you select what the standard is, you select the initial application date, and then it gives you an option to put in your local currency and functional currency if you have, and it's very handy. So if you have foreign currencies, it will calculate those as well and calculate it to reporting currency, i.e. kind of like USD. Also, as you can see, ProNexus, once you set up a company, here you can add a location. So again, very simple. So that's part of one of the data fields that you have. So you have the location of the lease. And we'll go over that in further detail when we start going through the addition of lease data. Customization. So these fields are where you can kind of customize them to your liking. So as you can see here, we have asset types. We have quite a few in here right now, for example, but again, it's just clicking this green button and adding what you want and saving it. You do the same thing for cost centers because you can do journal entry allocation for expenses. You can set up custom fields. So if you want more information besides the basic data points needed to calculate the ROU asset and liability, you can do that. For example, we have lease owner, discount rate, test, and you can add as many of those as you want. And this is where you can also add the lessor if you want. So these fields can also be added when we enter our lease data. So we can enter them at this screen in the administration, or we can enter it when we add a lease here. Okay, we have journal entry accounts, and here you can set up your ledger. It comes standard with the minimum amount of accounts that you'll need. You can expand this. It gives you the option to edit this, to change your GL description on your accounts. You can change the GL number as well. And as you can see here, we kind of did an example. It takes an infinite amount of numbers. I think we put like 25 in there for the testing. And then if you want to add an account, again, it's just as easy to pick what you want, put in your description, add your account number. And as you can see, we have this for operating lease. So we have this for this British pound company that we were doing a test on. But as you can see, if you go to test company here, it's going to change it to whatever that company is. So you'll be able to set these GL accounts by company. And it has the accounts for operating leases, finance leases, variable expenses, and non-lease payments. Also has GL revision accounts. So if you're going to modify your lease, you may have a profit or loss once you do that modification. And also your existing 840 balances need to be written off against the ROU asset, and the software does that as well. And we also have here the currency. So if you do have foreign currencies, you can add them here. You can add as many as you need. So if we went to 21, you can see here I would add the information. So right now we don't have any data in there because this is a US only company. I don't know, do we have any questions, Raphael?
Not at the moment.
Okay, all right. All right, so we're gonna look at add lease. So here's kind of your basic add a lease, where we got description and term. We have lease payment and classification, GL accounts, variable expense and non-lease payments, and we can attach all the documents related to this lease. You also have the option to, if you don't want to do it manually here, you can actually do a bulk upload, and this gives you the instructions. It's your basic Excel spreadsheet that you open up, and you would add the information and you can upload it. So if you wanted to do 50 leases, 100 leases at one time, you could do it that way. So now we're going to go to My Lease.
It's thinking.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it froze on me. This normally doesn't happen. Okay. So we're back here to My Lease. So here we can do custom views. So I've made a couple custom views. You go through and you select the leases you want to create a custom view for, and you type the contents of the name here, and you can save a custom view. You can also search by reporting entities, location, classification, asset type, lease end dates, and lease status. And status, you have completed, review, delete, or incomplete. So right now we're going to go to the Pittsford company and we'll do a walkthrough of a lease that we've already filled out to save time. So as you can see here, we have the reporting entity. So we got from our drop-down list that we added at the administration tab, or we can, again, add it right here while we're putting the lease information in. Here's where we'd put our local currency. Here's the lease name that we selected. And here's a description of the property: a corporate office in a professional building with an area of approximately 10,000 usable square feet, et cetera, et cetera. For your non-real estate type leases for equipment, vehicles, et cetera, you can put the manufacturer in there for another description. And here again, here's the asset types that we have. All right, so we got this from the drop-down list that we saw on the administration tab again. And again, you can just add that asset type right here. And then our location You have Pittsford. And again, you can just add it right here. Put all that information like we saw in the reporting entity tab. And again, the lessor, and we can add that. And you got a drop down list once you get them entered in. So here you can see these fields are shaded out because we actually did go through the term wizard. So if we had this term wizard turn on, which we did when we created this lease, that you actually, it would force you to go through the term wizard. But if you didn't want that on, you would turn it off and you could just type in these dates. It would automatically calculate the months of your term, and then it would put it over here as well. So for the term leases, for the term lease wizard, we have here, the first tab is you're going to put your original start and end date. And then early termination. Are you reasonably certain you will bypass the early termination? We said yes. But if you said no, it would give you the option to put in a termination date, which would be different than your original term that we put on the previous location, right? And then we also have, are you reasonably certain to exercise the renewal option? And we said no. Next, and then so it gave us our date here. So that date does match what we originally put in because we did not do a renewal or an early termination. And then here there's a comment field where you can put anything you want here. We've decided to put the renewal terms in there. And then here's this custom field that we discussed earlier. And we had the discount rate, the lease owner, and test demo. And again, you can just select this field and add the field, the custom field right there. We're going to save those changes and then we'll go to lease payments. So here we got lease payments, and here's where you would enter your discount rate. We used 4%. Now you can see these are kind of shadowed out as well because this lease has been entered on the initial implementation date. So these fields do not apply on day one. Now for new leases after day one, you would, if you had an incentive or you had initial indirect cost, you would enter the amounts in here and this would automatically adjust your ROU asset. So you have the option next to see monthly, quarterly, or yearly payments. And here's our payment streams that we entered in there, 5,000, 6,000, and 7,000. And again, it's really easy just to click here, add your numbers. Calculate, select your date, and you can add a payment stream. And if you decide you don't want that, we'll just delete it. And then here is, as we discussed before, the 840 existing balance. So if you have any prepaids or deferred rents or accrued rent under 840, you have to eliminate those balances, and that would also adjust your ROU asset because your ROU asset and liability start out at equal amounts and will be adjusted. The asset will be adjusted accordingly to these characteristics that I've pointed out. And this as well has a drop down where you can select what account you want to use, and we put in our amount, and then you can add as many accounts as you want. Here again, this is shadowed out because we did run through the classification wizard to go through the 5 bright lines to identify if this is an operating lease or a finance lease. So if you don't have that turned on, this drop down will automatically give you the option for an operating lease or a finance lease. So let's open up the wizard. So it asks you your questions, right? Ownership transfer. Are we going to exercise the purchase option? Does the asset have no alternative use? And then here where we talk about our 75% of the economic life, it actually has a calculator. So it will take the terms that we had in there originally, you enter in the life, and it will calculate your percentage. And the same for the present value of the lease payments. Are they greater than 90% or less than 90%? And you just put the fair value in there and it will automatically calculate it. And this is a great tool for when you're actually adding new leases after day one, because then you have an audit trail that you actually went through the testing. So we'll save those changes. Now we'll go to the GL accounts. So here, these GL accounts are standard, what we had set up. These came out of the box, but we did add another rent expense because we're showing the allocation. So here we got 50% each, but if I delete that, this will go back to 100. So this will automatically make sure that you do not go over 100%. So it will always calculate that number. Save that. And here's our variable expenses and non-lease payments. So here we selected variable rent expense. And we didn't select the cost center here. We just said 100% going to the expense account that we have listed here. And the lease said that you're going to pay a minimum of $1,000 a month for CAM charges, and it will be adjusted accordingly at the end of each year. So we know we're going to pay a minimum of $1,000 a month over the term of the lease at the start date. And at the end of the year, when we get that adjustment that we have to account for, we just add a line and we put that difference in there. And it would be one payment and put the amount. So we'll save those changes. And here's where you can attach all the documents that you want that reference the lease or belong to that lease. So we put an amortization table here. You can easily upload, choose a file. You can put a comment in there, comment to what it is, and upload it. Or you can get rid of it if you change your mind. Okay, so let's go back to my leases. Then we will go back to Pittsford. And we'll just do a quick look here of the review test. The review tab is turned on here. So when you get to the end and you attach your document after you've entered all this information, this tab would be added to your leases. And here we can delete people or add people and put their name in there and then submit for review, and they would automatically get a notification to go to the software and review and approve this lease. Okay, so now we're going to look at the remeasurement. So if we had a modification in this example, we've extended the lease for 1 year because we exercised the renewal term 10 months into the lease. So the original was 1/1/19 to 12/31/26, 96 months. We'd entered this data, saved our changes, and then it's going to bring you back to that lease information, and you're going to make the adjustments accordingly. So as you can see, it locked in this 10/1, the start of the new lease. It got extended from 1 year to 2027, and it calculates the new number of payments. And then it goes to lease payments. So maybe our interest rate, our discount rate changed, or our payments changed, so we would update that information accordingly, just as we saw before. And then, of course, we have our GL accounts. And because we're doing a remeasurement, you may have a gain or a loss, or you may have it in a suspended account, but that completes your journal entry. And it works for that as well. And then here's where, again, where if you had a variable expense or a non-lease payment, you could add it or update it here and attach your documents. So let's go back to Pittsford here and we'll run some reports. So you select any reports you want. You can select them all by selecting that. But we're going to select these three that I have set up, previously set up. And so we're going to run it in local currency, but you can run it in functional currency and reporting currency as well. So we're just going to select the date here. We'll go January 19 to December 19. Okay. So the first report we'll run will be all the lease data. So this lease gives you the criteria which you ran the report on. And then here's a list of all the leases with all the field data for those leases that we selected. Now you can also have an amortization schedule. So we'll run this amortization schedule. So this is really kind of the background of your lease data that generates your journal entry. So as you can see, we have the months here. We have the amortization or operating expense, the ROU asset at the beginning, the amortization, the end of the month, the liability, interest expense if applicable, liability again, short-term, long-term, it automatically will calculate and recalculate each month what your short-term, long-term liability is. We have our balance sheet accounts for cash and AP for payments, variable expenses, the other PL accounts and other balance sheet accounts. And this is where it writes off that $5,000 of prepaid rent that we had. Again, our criteria. And each report that you run will have the lease data, just like the first report we ran, with all the lease data for each field that makes up that lease. Now, as you can see, we just ran that amortization schedule. They also have a option where if you want to get the data for each individual lease that makes up that amortization table. So I want to run an amortization table for one of my companies, but I want to see all the individual leases data that make up that total amortization report. So here we can see the same amortization table, but we have a new tab here that breaks out each lease individually and gives us that data. And then here's the fields. Here's, we got the remeasurement test we ran and the training demo. Which comes in very handy. We use that a lot for the auditors when they make a selection of leases. Okay, and then we have our journal entry. And as you can see, this journal entry's got all the GL accounts with the description, debit, credit, and also has each month. So we ran it for a full year. You can run it for a month. You can run it for 2 years. So this is very handy. It beats keeping track of everything in spreadsheets. And then also we have our footnote disclosure, which if you're using spreadsheets only, this can become kind of cumbersome as well. So here's the footnote disclosure, and this spreadsheet is pretty much basically right out of the standard. So we have our finance lease expense, the amortization, the interest. We got operating lease expense. We have a spot for short-term lease expense, sub-income. So if we have a lease and we've subleased that lease to somebody else, that income has to be put in there to go against the expense for disclosure purposes. Other information, cash flow information. Also, the average remaining lease term in years for the operating leases, which is a requirement, and then the average discount rate. So you see as this goes month to month and you have leases coming on and off and have a number of leases, this could be kind of challenging. And here's our maturity analysis. These are the amount of payments that are going to be made for the next 5 years and thereafter. Okay, and last but not least, we also have an audit trail. So this takes a little bit because we've done a lot of work in demo. So this can be exported to Excel, but this will we'll keep track of every change that's made to any of the leases. So as you can see here, all the things that I had changed, we can see here that March 16th comes up with the date for the changes that I made in the system. Okay, I think that about covers it, Raphael.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. Nice job there. So I will, you want to stop your sharing your screen?
Yeah.
And we'll go back to, let's see here. Let's see, is this the one? This might be the one. Okay. Can everyone see? Can you see that, Dan?
Sorry, yes, I can.
Okay. Yep, that's the right one. I don't think that date is accurate there, that October 19th, in terms of the upcoming webinar. It's a little ways out. All right. So as we're looking at the questions, it looks like we've got a couple questions here to address. The first is, what types of security levels are available in this system? You want to talk about that, Dan?
Yeah, they have 3 levels, right? Read only, which we kind of discussed these, but it's good to know. Read only, so you can only run reports and look at the information in the system. The user would kind of maybe be your senior level that's going to enter all that data in, and then you select the review, and you would get that as a manager to make that lease complete. And then you have your administrator that has full access to the system that can delete and add users and companies, etc., as we saw in that administration tab.
Okay, great. And then the other question we've got here, oh, my screen went away. Let's try that again. Can you see it, Dan?
Nope.
No, okay. Let's try that again.
Technical difficulties.
Let's see.
All right, I think it's coming up now. There you go.
All right.
There you go.
All right, so the second question we've got here is, can you provide more detail as to the SOC reports and the agreed upon procedures?
Yeah, so they actually have added a SOC 1 Type 2 report, which is basically addresses the internal controls over reporting effectiveness. And they also have a SOC 2 Type 2 report, which is more on opining about the software system design and operating effectiveness of the controls relevant to the security and the processing integrity. They both have unqualified opinions. They always do a bridge letter. So if it's not at year end, it will be continued for year end for the auditors. And the agreed upon procedure was an independent audit firm calculated some lease data on their system and entered that same data into Lease Crunch, and they came out within a penny difference. So that's good to know. The auditors love to hear about that.
All right, that's great, Dan, thanks. We got one more question here. Looks like, what type of common errors or challenges do clients sometimes experience as they get acclimated to the software that the manager should look out for during implementation?
Well, I guess that's kind of hard to say. Really, entering the information can be easily verified with a master data sheet. So that's our process that we have. We'll have our seniors go through the leases, pull about 60 or 70 data points from those leases. The principal or the senior manager will review that data, and then that data would be entered into the software, and then we would run those reports that we looked at out of the software and reconcile that to our master data sheet. So that kind of completes the process.
Okay, great. Thank you. And that looks like it does it for their questions today. I did look at our upcoming schedule on webinars, and we actually have our next one. It's unrelated to the leases. It's a NetSuite Cloud ERP webinar on April 27th. The next one related to leases is May 18th, which is our lease accounting implementation webinar. That's where we discuss FASB's new lease standard and what is involved to implement it and maintain it. And if that is one you guys are interested in, but you don't want to wait till May 18th, we do have a pre-recorded webinar that we did last month that we can send you as well. So I want to thank everyone today for attending the webinar. Again, you guys have our email addresses, so feel free to reach out to us after this if you have any questions or would like to discuss the software further. But again, enjoy the rest of your week, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Caitlin, for organizing this and coordinating it as well.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye now.